Hello, I'm Jane Melia, and it's a real pleasure to meet with you today. So I am here at my home in Kensington, which is a small community north of Berkeley, up in the hills, and I've been living here for 6 years with my husband, and from time to time, some of our adult children, which have lived here for several months at a time before carrying on with their lives, which we've really enjoyed. We also have an ADU in the house, so we have some tenants as well, and we enjoy spending time with them too. So one of the reasons I really love this home is the community and how walkable it is, but also I like being in the hills and being close to nature. I am a gardener by nature, so I spend as much time as I can out here in the yard and trying to make things look nice and look after my flowers. Our house has been gas-free since 2018. And so although we lived here starting in 2016, and little by little over the years, we've made improvements, including getting rid of our gas furnace and other things. And very pleased to be gas-free, and also have a lot of features that I'm really excited to show you. One other thing is I'm also the co-founder and CEO of a company called Harvest Thermal, which is all about how to electrify our homes, and I'll show you a little bit of that on our tour today. So I've been interested in clean energy for as long as I can remember. As a kid growing up, my dad and my mom, they were super interested in what could we do with solar, and how do we make sure our home's more efficient? Fast forward to today, what's really exciting is that the technology exists. We know how to solve all these problems. It's not, 20 years ago we were saying, will we have the technology to solve climate change? We know how to do it. We can slash emissions by 90% from our homes. We can slash emissions from our cars. And so it's a question of let's come up with the right products, let's make sure that people have access to them, and let's just do this, because it's very much within our grasp. Come this way, I'd like to show you my all-electric kitchen. So here's our induction stove, which I absolutely love cooking with, and as you can see, making my tea, I'm very British in that way. And it works just perfectly. Heats water super quickly and cooks really, really good food. So we're really happy not to have gas in our kitchen anymore. And it means that the air in our house is so much cleaner and healthier, which is, of course, a relief for everybody. So I may have mentioned earlier that I love gardening, and part of that is trying to have a sustainable garden. So we compost our food waste, just throw it in this little bucket here on the shelf, and then take it down to our compost outside, which I'll show you later on. And that really allows me to have really good compost for the garden and reduce waste. Okay, so here we are in my garage, and you can see here is one of our electric vehicles. It's a really old Nissan Leaf, and we have another EV, a Bolt, which means that as well as having an all-electric house, we have all-electric driving, and they're powered by our solar panels, which is an additional benefit from our perspective. Now, about the solar panels, we have some really old solar panels, about 3.8 kilowatts. They've been on the roof of this house for nearly 18 years, so they're one of the earlier generations, but they're still functioning just great, so they're powering these cars. One thing I really like about our solar system is that we replaced the inverter just a couple of years ago, and the inverter that we have allows us to use the solar electricity if there's a grid outage. So if there's a grid outage, we just flick this switch, it disconnects from the grid, and we can then plug in and use the clean solar power. That means if there's a power outage, we can use our router, we can use our lighting, we can plug in our phones, all those low power things that are really helpful, that keep life moving forward. Okay, and now for another feature of the all-electric house. So this is our dryer. It's a heat pump electric dryer, and it uses 900 watts, which is about the same amount as a hairdryer to dry all our clothes. It works really well. Before getting it, I heard that it might take a really long time, it might not dry as well. But on average, this dries our clothes in about 60 minutes, which is not bad. So really like it, and again, like not having to use gas or other dirtier fuels. So our house is all electric. That means that we don't have any gas for heating or hot water. And so I'll be showing you our all electric heating and hot water system in a minute. But before I go there, from a comfort perspective, from a what it means for the inside of the house perspective, it hasn't changed. Our heating is delivered through these registered in the ceiling, just as it would, or just as it was when it used to be all gas. So here's our heat pump. It's a Sanko 2 heat pump water heater. Heat pumps are wonderful devices. They move energy rather than generating it, and therefore many times more efficient than even the best gas furnace or any electric resistance heating. This heat pump, for example, has a coefficient of performance of 5.25, which means that at optimum times it's moving 5.25 times more heat into the home than it's using in terms of electricity, which is really, really wonderful. It's also extremely quiet. It's 37 decibels. In fact, it's just under my daughter's bedroom and we never hear it. You have to touch it to know if it's on. And there are no refrigerant lines going to the home. The refrigerant is all encased within it, and between the home and the heat pump it's only water, which I really like, not having refrigerant running through my house. Another thing is that this is a Sanko 2, so it's typically a heat pump water heater, but we've been able to use it not just for heating our water, but for actually heating our whole house using the Harvest system that I'm going to be able to show you in a few minutes. Okay, so you remember the compost bin I showed you in the kitchen a bit earlier. Here's a bit more about my compost system. So you see 3 bins. The one in the middle here, that's the finished compost that I can use for my yard. The one here that's now on the left, that's one which is settling. So it's full of material that is turning into compost, and then we water it and turn it periodically. And then the big one on the right is the one that we're right now using to put in our food waste, but also I put it in a lot of yard waste, be it weeds that I've removed or dry waste from, say, the bamboo. And so we have these 3 bins constantly rotating and giving me compost for all my needs for my garden. So I'm a keen gardener, but I'm also very aware that we've got to take care of water and preserve it. So we put in a grey watering system, and that gives us all the water from our washer, as well as water from all 3 showers goes through a grey watering system, and it just comes directly to all these trees along the perimeter of my home, giving us nice shade and really providing all the water that these trees and plants need just from our showers and our washing machine. So we just saw our heat pump water heater outside, which operates when electricity is nice and clean and cheap in the middle of the day and generates hot water at high temperatures. That's stored in this tank and is used later on for our hot water for dishwasher, showers and so on, but also it's used to heat our home and keep it nice and warm. You can see that the tank is nicely wrapped with a nice layer of insulation. Why waste heat when you don't have to? And all the pipes going to and from the pipe are also insulated, so this water is stored at high temperature and it stays nice and hot. It's not widely known that most of the energy we use in our homes is actually for heating and hot water. So we can put solar panels on our roofs, which is great and it's important to do, but that's not solving the problem of the gas that we're burning for our heating and hot water. And while electricity is continuously getting cleaner, gas is not. So that's the biggest problem to solve. In fact, a lot of us are thinking about, how do we get gas out of buildings? When we talk about gas in buildings, 90% of that is heating and hot water. It's not your stove, it's not your chimney, it's your heating and hot water. So that was a problem that Harvest we really tried to solve. So we saw the heat pump outside, we've seen the tank here where we're storing it up. And this is the Harvest pod, which is really the brains of our system. And this really controls the operation of the heat pump to make sure it only runs when electricity is cleanest and cheapest. It also manages this tank as though it were a battery, right? You can think of this as a Tesla Powerwall storing hot water, and it makes sure it delivers the heating and hot water to the home whenever you need it. Using this system, what's nice is it's 100% clean, it's extremely efficient, and it's reduced our emissions by 90% compared to gas, by about 50% compared to had we used a regular heat pump system, and it's also cut our bills by 40%. Our energy bills have gone down by 40% using this system because it's just so efficient. Okay, so this box here is our heat recovery ventilator. So it's kind of an ugly box, but I really love it. And the reason I love it is it allows us to have the highest quality air because it's always ventilating the house, and it does so without losing any heat because it's got heat recovery ventilation, heat recovery as part of the process. So a really nice addition to any home to keep the quality of your air clean without losing energy, without losing heat. So we're trying to get gas out of our homes for our heating and hot water, so we're putting in heat pumps, and that's really important. But one thing that I think we need to be aware of is that electricity is not always clean. This is the electricity generated in California. You can see the emissions. They're much higher in the morning and the evening than they are in the middle of the day. And that's because there's a lot of solar on the grid in California. Even if you don't have solar on the roof, when you plug in the middle of the day, that's mostly solar electricity. Now, when we want to heat our homes using a heat pump, which are fantastic things, you're going to typically use them in the morning and in the evening. That's when you need to heat your home. So it doesn't really coincide with this nice dip in the middle of the day, which we call the duck curve. So what you'd really like is for your heat pump to operate like an inverse duck, right? The upside down duck. And that's really what the Harvest thermal system does. The Harvest pod that we saw downstairs operates the heat pump at the middle of the day, always when electricity is cleanest and cheapest, but it then stores it up as hot water and then delivers the heating to your home whenever you need it. So it's always capturing this lowest carbon, lowest cost electricity in the middle of the day. Now, what that does is, of course, it's great to get rid of gas, but we're also reducing emissions by 92%. This is what we measured in our home last year compared to gas, and by 41% compared to had we used a typical heat pump. And it's also saving our bills, 42% compared to gas and minus 23% compared to heat pumps. So it's good for our home. It's nice and clean. It's good for our wallet, but it's also really good for the planet. And that's what we're super excited about. So thank you for visiting my home. I hope you found it interesting, and I look forward to your questions. So over the past few years, we've done a lot of experimenting, as you can see, from our stove to our dryer to our solar and, of course, our heating and hot water. And, you know, over the past 4 years, we've been deploying a number of beta versions and pilots in a lot of homes around here. But now we're actually rolling it out commercially with dozens of homes going in the East Bay, the South Bay, and the North Bay. Looking forward to answering any questions and sharing some of the learnings that we've had through this journey.